long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, Naboo was under an attack. Hello there, and welcome back to the SWTVC podcast, the audio home of the SWTVC crew and the ongoing push for the continued existence, expansion, and success of the heritage scale of Star Wars collecting. I'm Evan, and as usual, I am joined by the brains, beauty, and bomb badness that is the Vintage Concepts himself, John Lindquist. How you doing, man?
Wow, good. Especially after that. How are you?
Oh boy, winded. Yes, it's
We've only just started.
Is there a leak in our bongo?
Wow. Monsters out there leaking in here. I could go on. I will go on.
When I used to thinking we're in trouble.
I got to pace myself with the Jar Jar impressions, everybody. There will be plenty of them throughout the show.
Oh, I trust that. But yes, obviously, speaking of leaks, yes, we're aware of the latest Hasbro IT debacle, but we will wait to discuss it until it is properly revealed. Until then, we hope you're saving up so that you can pay your tab. Wink. To start this episode off, let's just jump right into things, shall we? Instead of saying, hey, what'd you get in the mail this week, John? I'll instead ask, hey, man, what were you up to 25 years ago today?
Watching The Phantom Menace, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Just real quick, do you remember where you saw it for the first time and with who?
Of course.
With whom? Sorry.
I was 9 years old, as I believe you were as well.
I think it would have been 8.
You were 8?
Technically.
Okay. What's 8? What's a number? But so I was with my family. I remember
Sound like Padme right there. Yeah. Sorry. Age is just a number, man.
Oh, Padme. But I was with my family, saw it at a local theater in Colorado, which I think still exists, but is now like a Cinebar or something. Yeah, that's where I saw all of the original trilogy for the special edition and all the prequels for the first time. So kind of some little family history there, I guess. But yeah, it was awesome. And we'll get into it. Was not the last time I saw that movie, of course. But yeah, it was awesome. What about you?
Stunning if that was the last time you saw that movie.
I remember everything about it. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, we'll test your memory here in a sec. Yeah, I saw it at the Mall movie theater in friggin' Casper, Wyoming. Wonderful, wonderful place. That theater... long gone. I think it didn't even make it into like the early 2000s. I did not see any of the other prequels at that theater. But I remember I saw it with my dad for the first time, but we'll get into it more. But I just wanted to kind of test the waters here and
yes.
Get going on the nostalgia train. Obviously, we're talking about the Phantom Menace this week, if we are burying the lead here.
Yes, and while Shmi Skywalker told us to not look back, we're going to look back today, That's
all we're going to do today.
Yes.
So, you know what? Let's just take a little walk down memory lane of the lead up to the historic release of this iconic film.
Yes. So for some people that were not just 8 or 9 years old, it had been 16 years of a wait since Return of the Jedi came out. And leading up to it, it was an event in and of itself. It was the first celebration ever in Denver, Colorado. I went.
I did not, unfortunately.
Yes.
I was only 4 hours away, but I was also only 8. So
yeah, I remember because we talked about this a couple years ago on the celebration episode. So go listen to that. But I went with my dad on the first and third days, and with my mom on the second day, and it was just incredible. And I've been to every celebration since. It was just such a great experience. And yeah, we'll get into more into that in a little bit. But there were so many fun things leading up to episode 1.
Yes. The first thing that came to mind for me when I was putting together this outline was the Pepsi commercials with the alien. You know the name of the alien, right?
It's Marfalump. So put some respect on his name. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I keep thinking of the commercials and some of I had more of the lines, but I still vividly picture him playing with the Pepsi cans because they had character faces on them.
Oh yeah,
and where he was smashing together like, oh no, Darth Maul, and smashing them all together and spilling stuff. Oh man!
And then cut to the woman opposite that was behind the camera said, "This is the weirdest date I've ever been on," which was perhaps a preview for our romantic lives for the next 25 odd years. But yeah. Thanks, Marfalump, for setting us up for success. But
I feel like I should never, ever, ever show that commercial to my partner because she'll watch it and she'll just be like, "Oh my God, everything makes sense to me now."
You are Marfalump. I cannot look at you and not see him now. But did you get the Pepsi cans? There was Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, Pepsi One, I believe at the time, and Mountain Dew.
Yeah, Pepsi One was the silver one at the time because it was 1 calorie before zero was a cool thing.
They didn't have the technology to have 0 calories, just one at the time.
No, of course I got the cans, man. I had tons of it. In fact, I bet if I looked real hard at my mom's house, I would still find some. I don't know what condition they'd be in, if they're full, they're empty, or if they were full and stained around where they're sitting. But I don't know. I didn't have all of them because that wasn't really my completion mission then. But oh yeah, I loved getting those.
I had to complete them all, and I also had to complete all of the KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut's now Yum brands, previously Tricon. Sorry, don't adjust your podcast app. This is not a surprise episode of Doughboys. This
episode is brought to you by Yum Brands. Just kidding. Can I get sued for saying that?
I don't know. Maybe let's test the waters. But
let's find out. Let's monetize this baby.
Had to get all the toys from there as well, because each of those restaurants was themed to a different planet in the movie. Naboo, Tatooine, and Coruscant with themed toys, cup toppers. I love the cup toppers, game pieces, and decor. We had a display in my family's house of all the cup toppers in the basement. It was awesome. And
For the particularly younger crowd that may be listening to this, Pizza Hut was kind of a restaurant back in the 90s. Like, not like I'm just going to order this and get it and not ever go in there. Like, it was like an actual dining experience. So I date myself here when I say Pizza Hut as a kid, like at that time, Pizza Hut was the restaurant closest to my house. And we would meet like my friends and like my parents' friends, like families. We would get together at Pizza Hut. That was an outing. I mean, maybe that's just Western trash, but like that's what we were doing, man.
I remember. And KFC, for some reason, it felt at the time almost like upscale to me. I don't know why. I mean, it wasn't, but especially, and they shot themselves in the foot now with, the bowl and like the slot bowls. Listen to Patton Oswalt on that, and stuff like the sandwich that's just chicken instead of bread. But at the time, they had some nice sides and things, and it was fun to go.
How
there
does this sound to a non-American listener? Like, what, chicken instead of bread? Are you what?
Yeah.
Are you guys okay over there? The answer is no. People died, so they stopped selling those things.
This is nutsin'. There's another one for you. But I did have Taco Bell just before this to celebrate. Sadly, there was not a Jar Jar toy in the box. But and when you got all those toys, they made a little mural on the back. So long before Black Series thought it was cool, KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut knew it was awesome. So
yeah, they had posters too. My cousin had those. Shout out to Layla. If you ever listen to this, I remember you had all that stuff. I think it's still in your parents' house.
There was I think Taco Bell had 4 posters you could line up side by side and make a giant poster. I think I only got 3 of the 4.
Yeah, I think I only ever ended up with like 2 of them. I had the Anakin one, and then I think I might have had the Darth Maul one.
I mean, what a dream to go get a taco and some cinnamon twist and a Watto poster. What a time we were living in. We didn't even know it.
Yeah.
That they took from us, but
oh man. Dude, that was tons of fun. Another thing too is I put a little memory here, just a little memory, but in the lead up bit. My biggest hype generator on top of going to the Pizza Hut regularly, and then of course lots of Taco Bell. My mom was a product of the 90s, she was a 90s shopaholic in that age group. So she would always drag me along to all of her shopping. And one store that was her favorite was the Bon Marché. I don't think that exists. I don't know if it folded into something else that got bought. I don't care. But anyway, long story short, they had in the kids section, they had a little table in the middle of the walkway, like one of those little like VCR combo TVs that they had plugged in. There was an extension cord running from behind like a rack of clothes. And this little TV, someone had gotten a videotape. They had a videotape. I don't know if they recorded it or they were given it of the Phantom Menace trailer. And that just played on loop all day, just on that little table. And there was like some merch just around it. And I remember my mom would be shopping and I would just sit there watching that over and over and over again until she was done. That just had me like, my heart would race. I'd beeline over there and be like, I got to see this trailer.
Yes. And you didn't have to go get tickets to Mighty Joe Young or Meet Joe Black, not Mighty Joe Young. One of the Joes. it was a Meet Joe Black. That's when the trailer played. So people would buy the ticket and then just go watch the trailer and then not watch the Brad Pitt movie that nobody remembers other than its proximity to the episode 1 trailer.
Well, people remember the absurd ending to that movie, but yeah.
We'll save it for our Meet Joe Black podcast. But when you talked about taping the trailer, I remember the Weird Al song, The Saga Begins, which you referenced at the top of the show, of course. I love that song. I listened to it this morning. I got nostalgic about it. And I remember having a tape and waiting to tape it because I knew Radio Disney would play at the same time every day. It was the censored version where, do you see him talking to the Queen, though he's just 9 and she's 14. The actual song is hitting on the Queen, but Radio Disney would never allow such profanity. So
Disney ruining Star Wars since 1999.
Oh, my God. But yeah, another thing, I loved all the TV spots for this. They had the tone poem TV spots, which were awesome, focused on different characters, reading specially recorded lines just for the campaign. And the Darth Maul spot was great. His lines were also in the awesome Duel of the Fates music video that played on TRL on MTV. Remember when, now we get to say when MTV actually had music on television, as every nostalgic conversation always has to turn there at some point. But they used to play John Williams music videos on MTV. That was actually pretty rare, but it was awesome.
That's just how much of an event this was. Like, that's how,
yes.
Like, this was a cultural phenomenon, man.
Yep. It's hard to put it into words. I guess the closest we've gotten to it since then would probably be Force Awakens.
Yeah.
But in just in terms of a movie, an event, just a cultural event, way bigger than the movie itself. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one where it's like literally every human being on the face of this planet was aware of The Phantom Menace or episode 1. So
yeah.
Well, let's move things along here. And before we dive into a little bit more of our personal relationships to The Phantom Menace, John, you since you last saw this movie way back in 1999 for the first and only time, can you recite to us off the top of your head the opening crawl?
Absolutely. So, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I do not have this pulled up. You can pull it up if you want to.
I feel like I need to release this as a video clip.
So, turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet of Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, to settle the conflict. If that doesn't get your blood pumping, I don't know what will, folks.
I love it, man.
Here we go.
Now, imagine this, Chicago 2019 hotel room, a bunch of us sitting there. I think we put on The Phantom Menace, and John just across the room, not even looking at the TV, is just spouting off the title crawl while it's playing.
Yes.
Oh, man.
That was so fun. We started doing a lot of the lines. We did not finish the movie. Not everybody in the room was as thrilled as I was, perhaps. But
yeah, I was going to say, I think the mixed crowd was a mixed reception on that. So.
I loved it.
I know you do. I mean, speaking of loving it, you love this movie, right? So tell us about it. Tell us about your relationship with The Phantom Menace, John. What does it mean to you, man?
It means a lot. So it was, I had only been a Star Wars fan for 2 years at the time, having been brought into the fold for the special editions. But even then, I knew the hype was immense. I remember even like being on vacation at the at Mount Rushmore and hearing about on the news. Today was the first day of principal photography on episode 1. I said, oh my God. Just knowing that it was going to be a prequel, like my mind was racing, like, oh my God. As you said, it wasn't just a movie. It was an entire cultural experience. It was the first time I got to experience a new Star Wars movie releasing as a fan. Like I said, got all the Pepsi cans, all the Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut toys. Lego, put their first licensed items ever, maybe taking a bite out of Hasbro's apple a little bit, but also bringing in a whole lot of new fans to the franchise over the years. But I remember seeing leaked images of the Hasbro figures on Sir Steve's Guide a few months ahead of release, which became my Star Wars internet home for a very long time, especially in the forums as the years went on. And most of the forum members there were relatively quite kind on the movie and the prequels in general. I remember one sourpuss, I won't name and shame you, but I know who you are. And I was still a big prequel defender online for many years, including in discussions with you. Yes, as
I own this.
Yes.
I know.
And I'll take credit for turning you around. Yeah. But at the time, we'll get into the Hasbro figures, obviously. That's what we do on this podcast. But I remember going to the stores with my parents and just being able to find a different episode 1 figure pretty much every time. They had walls of episode 1 figures walls at Walmart, Target, and Toys R Us, entire aisles. Just every time. I don't know what my allowance was at the time, but any time that I was able to get a new figure, if I wanted to pick one out, there was one there. I remember even having to pick, like, do you want Obi-Wan or Watto today? Like, ooh, I gotta go Watto. Come on, I'll get Obi-Wan next
Monster.
time. I'm sorry.
But
and another fun thing was the Star Wars fan club was based in Denver at the time, and they had a few giant warehouse sales super early in the morning around the episode 1 era that I'd go to with my dad. We'd get breakfast, and I just remember rummaging through all the stuff and finding figures that I hadn't had. We'll talk about, again, specifically some of the figures later, but as for the movie, it's basically as close as we can get to a direct line into George Lucas's brain, and it is as imaginative and political and, most importantly, weird and epic as you'd expect. Star Wars always covers lots of tones, but episode 1 has Senate scenes discussing a trade blockade, as well as an extended wacky race full of the craziest cartoon characters you have ever seen in your whole life, and I love it for it. People are off-screen in camps on Naboo, apparently dying, while Ben Quadinaros, a giant head with arms and legs, is frustrated that his car is exploding.
We have the slaughter of an innocent people while a frogman steps in poop.
Icky, goo! But obviously, it's not just George. People think it's just George, but there's lots of genius work from designers like Doug Chiang, Ian McCaig, Terrell Whitlatch, and Trisha Bigger. Obviously, the amazing fight choreography from Nick Gillard, which totally set the stage for the prequel, totally set the bar for the prequels. John Knoll and everyone at ILM who changed the freaking game, which at the time everybody was like, what is going on? And now just looking at the last 25 years of movies, would not be the same without episode 1 and everybody involved in that, especially Ahmed Best doing the first mocap character ever. And obviously, of course, John Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing the fire as he always does. Duel of the Fates. My God, go put it on after this if you haven't already, but haven't already lately.
This is the kind of stuff that the word iconic is meant for.
Yes.
This is the appropriate time to use stuff like iconic. Like all of this is iconic. I know I am annoyed that I'm saying that word so much, but that is the word.
This is the time to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, pushed filmmaking so far ahead between the obvious advancements in digital effects to what it did for stuff like editing. I'm an editor myself. I mentioned it before, but in the beginning documentary, the scene where George Lucas is telling Ben Burt, sound designer and one of the editors in episode 1, to kind of split a shot and use different takes from different actors on different sides of the screen. And Ben is like, WTF, bro, what are you talking about? Is this possible? And now, yes, 25 years later, it's basically standard practice on blockbusters like this.
Just I may have gone too far in a few places.
Yes. I may have gone too far in a few places. Yes, great documentary. Love that documentary. And I've always loved episode 1. It might be the movie I have seen in theaters more than any other, actually. I saw it 6 times in the theater back in 1999. I guess 5 in the initial release, then they put it out again in December. Didn't come out in VHS till April of 2000, DVD in 2001, Blu-ray and streaming and all that later. And I've seen it at Celebration with rooms full of fans a few times. Saw it twice for the 3D re-release in 2012 when there were very few people in the theater. But this recent reissue, I got to see it in a full theater with people laughing at the jokes and, yes, laughing at some of the meme lines, clapping at the character introductions, cheering when Anakin said, "Now this is pod racing," if you can believe that. Cheering for the finale. It was just awesome. So I love to see it.
Yeah, I just saw, if I may jump in. I just saw it in theaters as well, and it was a pretty full crowd. And I saw it on the 4th, which means it had been showing. That was the second day. It was several showings, and they were all pretty booked out. And yeah, it was kind of surreal watching it with a crowd for the first time, because I didn't see it in 2012. And I haven't seen any of the celebration showings of it. The last time I saw it in theaters was 25 years ago.
Wow.
Many times, of course. But yeah, so like seeing people receptive to it, loving it. I caught myself just smiling like a dope the whole time, and I was seeing it with my girlfriend who, I've talked many times about it. I don't need to tell the whole story again, but I've talked many times about how that was something we did early on in our relationship. And that was one of those like, oh, we're falling in love things. And the first I showed her the movies controversially in chronological order. So we started with The Phantom Menace. And that was maybe the only one she had kind of seen as a kid because her stepdad was a big nerd about it. But that was the one that she like instantly latched onto, and she loves the prequels. So that's that special to me as an adult. But, I've had one hell of a journey with the Phantom Menace myself over the course of my life. It was like the first all new Star Wars that we got to experience. Like that was our Star Wars. And it felt like it. Anakin was almost exactly my age, 8, 9. And so it really kicked my love of Star Wars into high gear. Obviously, again, just like you, very similar paths here into Star Wars, with special editions were the gateway. This was what really got the ball rolling on that. So whether I admitted it or not as I got older, this movie was absolutely essential in informing my Star Wars fan journey. So it was actually the last Star Wars movie that I got to see with my dad. He passed away a year later. So if I recall correctly, age is a funny thing. It's hard to really remember all the finer details, but if I recall correctly, he pulled me out of school that day. I do remember him taking me out of school. I don't remember if it was in the morning or the afternoon. And so I got to go see it at that mall movie theater. And my friends and I, man, like there was no kid at school that didn't see that movie that weekend. Like everyone saw it. We all talked about it. If you didn't, you were lame and you got bullied. Yeah. Like you were the dork that got shoved into lockers. Just kidding. We didn't bully anybody that bad. My friends and I were constantly playing Jedi duels with anything that we could find to use as lightsabers, like pencils, whatever. We got in trouble many times for sneaking pencils and pens out onto the playground. We'd take turns being Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan. Naturally, I always wanted to be Obi-Wan.
Of course.
But as I entered those fun teenage years, navigated my early 20s, I did admittedly very much find myself being one of those prequels bad kind of guys. Like, red letter media is amazing. The internet may have had you believe different. Like they may have you believe differently now, but my God, people hated the prequels. People hated the Phantom Menace in particular. Anything you can think of someone has said about the sequels now, people said it and maybe worse about the prequels then. It was,
yes.
And I will say, I was probably a part of that for a while. I ragged on the prequels a lot. I really did. I was rebelling against that whole thing.
I'll just say real quick, I'll just jump in here and say, as you mentioned, Red Letter Media, they got on the map because they were hating on the Phantom Menace. The Blank Check podcast is only a thing because they're hating on Phantom Menace. The honest trailers that come out and get millions of views every time a movie comes out only started because they hated on the Phantom Menace. If we had started this podcast when you hated the Phantom Menace, we could have been millionaires by now. But
I know we'd be making Star Wars Theory look like a chump.
Instead, damn it, we actually like Star Wars, so it's hard now.
Yeah, and that's it too. It wasn't until I began maturing and growing into a more secure, not only a more secure love of Star Wars, but a more secure person, that I really began to just understand how much this movie meant to me, how much I loved Episode 1. To the point that I consider it my comfort food movie. It is something I could put on literally any time, any place, and it is safe and it is a cozy blanket of a movie. And I've finally accepted that fact that I am indeed a child of the prequels, man. And it's all because of this movie.
Yes, you're the chosen one.
So sorry for ranting so long.
No,
I'll try to cut that down a little bit.
Do not even cut a second.
So before we move on, let's go ahead and I'll just share. They couldn't be here with us recording today. It's funny how life works out. But we do have clips from some of the other SWTVC team members sharing what Phantom Menace means to them.
Oh, man. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I think my favorite memory about The Phantom Menace is going to see it with my dad. I was 8 years old at the time in 1999, soon to be 9. Prime age for getting into this sort of thing. And, I'd already been a fan of the original trilogy for as long as I could remember. And I just watched them countless times on VHS tapes. And I think my favorite memory about The Phantom Menace was just the realization that I was seeing a Star Wars movie in theaters on the big screen. And what an amazing experience that was, and how drastically different it was from the Star Wars that we had seen before. My favorite figure, I think it would just have to be any Darth Maul figure, really. I know I played with the one that split in half and could be connected with a magnet quite a lot. I reenacted the duel with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul countless times. I remember, Obi-Wan splitting him in half, and Maul would fall off the front porch, and just over and over and over again. It never got old. What the movie means to me, I think it just is emblematic of my childhood and the 90s, and a better, simpler time, I think. It really takes me back to a time in my life when there was so little to worry about, except the next time it was time to play with Star Wars action figures, And so the prequels will always hold a special place in my heart for that reason, because that's the generation of Star Wars that we grew up with. Of course, we love the original trilogy too, equally even. It's funny. I remember, Darth Maul just being on everything. He was on backpacks. He was on, lunch boxes. He was just everywhere. I was Darth Maul for Halloween probably once or twice. And he was like the hot new thing. And it was like, move over, Vader. I've loved you for years, but it's Darth Maul now. And then sort of the realization came that, he's dead now and he's not coming back. So then Vader came back as sort of my favorite character. Or is he? Is he really dead? We found out many years later that was not true. But yeah, I'll always love the Phantom Menace. It just reminds me of my childhood, I think, is the simplest way to put it. So happy 25th anniversary to the Phantom Menace.
So, my experience of the Phantom Menace is probably quite different from the rest of the team, as I would have been probably around 21, 22 years old by the time of the release. So by that time, I was well on my way as an adult action figure collector, picking up, Power of the Force 2 figures, any chance I could get. So, yeah, it was an interesting time for me. Most of my memories around that time are probably around the hype and the actual building up towards this new film and this new trilogy of Star Wars. It was sort of something that would have been an impossibility only a few years before that. It just didn't seem like something that would ever have happened. So I've got a lot of memories of reading things like Star Wars Insider and obviously picking up, any article I could get, because obviously pre-internet days, really. And so there was a lot of information out there, but it was always kind of in different articles, and it was just crazy. It was just this whole new era of Star Wars and more importantly, Anakin Skywalker's story that we had no idea about, and so it was just a really exciting build up, I think, to this new film. I remember going to see it for the first time with a group of friends, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was very different from the original trilogy that I grew up with. But I've only ever really had sort of positive things to say about it. And I know that obviously it was controversial at the time. The friends I went with all loved it as well. And in fact, one of my friends who I went with will still to this day say that The Phantom Menace is his favourite Star Wars film. So yeah, it went down well with us. But, I still think that the music is some of the best that John Williams has ever produced. And I was just blown away by the lightsaber battle between Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. It had acrobatics, it had, double lightsabers. It just blew my mind, really. So, yeah, absolutely loved it. Also loved seeing those new characters and, aliens like Sebulba and, Jar Jar. Seeing things like the battle droids, which was just really exciting to see this whole different side of Star Wars. And that linked in quite a lot to my, Star Wars figure collecting, where I just couldn't get enough of these new figures, that were available to collect. And they sort of coincided as well with this film being on the screen. So it was again, everything just worked together, seeing this new movie, collecting Star Wars figures. And obviously, I just remember getting that sneak peek Mace Windu as well. I mean, as a Star Wars figure collector, that was just such an exciting time, to be honest. But my favourite memory of seeing The Phantom Menace on the big screen was not 25 years ago. I mean, it actually was just a couple of weeks ago. On the 25th anniversary screening, it actually coincided with my birthday, and my family asked, what I wanted to do to celebrate. So I thought I'd try my luck, and ask if they wanted to go and see The Phantom Menace at the cinema. I was pretty sure that they only agreed because it was my birthday. Neither of my daughters have ever really shown any interest in wanting to see Star Wars before, and they've never seen a Star Wars film. I know I'm a bad parent, but unfortunately, girls, they just didn't, it's just never grabbed them before. But I'm glad to say that they agreed, and they absolutely loved it. It was a huge hit. And, even my wife conceded that, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. She said, I like the one with floppy ears. So, we're halfway there with her. But, it was just such a nice thing for me to be able to do with my family and go and experience it. And for something that just introduced them to Star Wars. Episode 1 is something they've never seen before, never got into. And so needless to say, I'm now pushing for Attack of the Clones for our next family film night. So I'll keep you informed on that one.
All right. So now let's just move on to the moment that everybody listening is really here for. The toys that made us.
The toys that Hasbro made a little bit ahead of time. We had a couple of sneak preview items at the tail end of the Power of the Force line. First up, Mace Windu, a mail-away figure. I remember being so excited to get him in the mail. Now we get every figure in the mail, so the novelty has worn off on that. But did you mail away for him back in the day?
I didn't. I was just not really like that savvy about it. Okay. But I do remember seeing the next item. I did see it in stores.
Yes, which is the STAP and Battle Droid, the single trooper aerial platform for those in the know. But there were a few versions of this because there was the boxed Power of the Force version. It was repacked in Episode 1 line and many times over the years after that. But I remember getting that Christmas of 98. And I just thought that was so cool. It had a little button on the bottom on the stand where the Battle Droid would jump up and the missiles would shoot out. It was a lot of fun.
Speaking of the STAP, I do remember that being something I saw in the Clone Wars trailer for back in 2008 when Anakin kicks the droid off the STAP in the sky and jumps on it.
It was jumping STAP to STAP.
Yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. And so you had plenty of opportunities to get the STAP over the years, but the Episode 1 line itself launched on May 3rd, 1999, the same day that 25 years later, Episode 1 came back to theaters.
And also 16 days before the movie came out. The movie came out.
So many spoilers. Didn't mention it ahead of time, but like I said, previously at Celebration, I remember I got an Episode 1 book, and I think my mom stepped out to make a phone call or something on our drive home back when you had to, use payphones and whatnot. But I remember flipping through the book, and it was like, everyone was so sad that Qui-Gon was dead. I was like, are you serious right now? That's what I get for looking at the end of the book. But, even on the soundtrack.
The soundtrack is what spoiled it for me.
Yeah. There's Qui-Gon's noble end. And then you're like, okay, even if you're trying to disassociate and have some plausible deniability, 2 tracks later, it's Qui-Gon's funeral. So I think, not much avoiding that there. Now we can't even find out who the main characters of a movie or show are ahead of time because everything is so secretive. But okay.
Yeah, don't tell them that this character, don't tell them that a guy in a Mandalorian outfit is in a show called The Mandalorian.
But ahead of time, Anakin, Padme, and Jar Jar figures were available a couple days early at Celebration. I remember I got a few of them. I got a Jar Jar to open and an Anakin to keep carded, the only Episode 1 figure that I kept carded, I believe. Of course, you got to start with the basic figures, 3.75 for life. But you had a couple favorites from this line?
I did. It is the Jedi duel characters, man, the trio. So I'm holding them up on an audio medium. Maul and Obi-Wan Jedi duel and Qui-Gon. They had the swivel elbows so that they could hold their lightsabers with 2 hands. And that to me blew my mind. Like, oh my God, you could pose them so cool. And they could fight. And it's just, I loved that. I loved that advancement. Like I always wanted my figures to move in cool, dynamic ways. And they were just perfect. They're perfect. They can hold the lightsaber like they do in the movie. That made me so happy. Those are still to this day, the Jedi duel Obi-Wan came on every vacation with me. I brought it everywhere. This thing has seen some stuff, man.
Yes.
It's classic. I love this figure. If I were to be buried with a single action figure, it would probably be that Obi-Wan.
Nice. When you said you brought it on vacation, did you bring the R2-D2 carry case or not? Did you have that?
No, sadly.
I had that. That would make many car trips with me and the family. It was awesome. But
I used to go because we traveled to Michigan, and for years, throughout the whole prequel years, my cousins and I would play Star Wars action figures every time we got together in our family trips in the summer and Christmas. In my carry-on bag, I literally had a bag filled with action figures and a little box of their accessories. And many times, like TSA would be like, "There's a wad of plastic in this kid's bag. We need to open this up and see what that is." But yeah, I cannot overstate how essential action figures were to me as a kid, just bringing them everywhere. Like, so good.
Yep. I remember bringing those guys a number of places as well. And they back in the day, I guess they're on different assortment numbers, but there was 3 different quote unquote collections for the episode 1 basic line. There was collection 1, which was the main heroes and villains, and collection 2 and 3 for the secondary and tertiary characters. They were immortalized on a great poster from Star Wars Galaxy Collector magazine, which from 4LOM to Zuckus reposted the other day, and I have saved. But that was on my wall for a very long time. As you said, the main heroes had 2 or 3, those Jedi Duel versions first, and then 2 or 3 versions available in the episode 1 line, starting with those basic looks, and then they added cloaks. We had a cloak run for everybody, and then they added soft goods towards the end of the episode 1 line. One of my favorite variations is Swimming Jar Jar from later in the line, who now had ankle articulation so that he could, of course, swim with one of the fish that he was included with. Some of these were harder to find at the end, but like C.O. Bibble and Padme with Ascension Gun, I had to get those years after the fact.
I think those are some of the only ones that I still don't have.
Oh wow!
There's a couple. I have a couple holes. Not that they're expensive, really, or hard to find these days. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back this year and finish my episode 1 collection.
Yeah, do it.
I think I'm only missing like 5 things. So
there's a few of the rare ones that another local collector gave me very nicely. Including some of those figures like R2B1 and TC14. And then, so all the episode 1 figures, of course, had a Comtech chip, ComTalk, for some of our overseas listeners, with some questionable dialogue. I believe they were all re-recorded by voice actors. I remember Darth Maul being, "At last, we will have revenge."
I just remember
very not accurate. Yeah.
I just remember the Obi-Wan one. Yeah. Could you understand me? No.
Supposedly they had to be reread so that you could understand them. So even that was a little murky. But yeah, they made the figures come alive, apparently, when paired with the Comtech reader, sold separately, of course. And the reader was based on Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's comlinks, which were in real life repainted women's razors with a bunch of stuff glued onto them. So we were holding around these $20 electronic women's razors so that we could hear the episode 1 characters talk. Did you have the, it came with a Comtech chip, and it also came with like a chain.
Yeah.
So you could wear it as a necklace or something, or you could feel like the coolest janitor in town with 100 different little Comtech keys on your chain.
Yeah, Jar Jar's the key to all this.
Yeah.
Yes, I had that chain. I did not carry it around, but I hung it with care in my room with all the Comtech chips that I had on it, to the point that it would like sag and fall off the wall many times.
Yeah. I remember I took it to school. I don't know if it was a show and tell thing one time, but yeah, the dang chain broke and I had to spend some recess picking up all my Comtech chips.
It's kind of a show and tell cheat. You get to show it and then it does all the telling for you. Magic.
I show, it tells. Why not? One of the great figures from this line was the C-3PO. What do you mean, naked? My goodness. My pots are showing. With all the incredible amount of paint apps, today it would be $6,000 for Hasbro to put that out. Or if Hasbro put that out. But at the time, it was awesome. What I'm looking at now is Senator Palpatine had the little the cam droid from the Senate, but it plugs into his Comtech chip in the hole for the necklace chain. It was just awesome.
It does?
Yeah.
You learn something new every day, even 25 years later.
But I had just an incredible variety of characters. Absolutely loved it. And there was more later on. We'll discuss those, but a couple deluxe figures as well. Not many. It was just Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul with buttons in their back, but they had big old lightsabers that you'd snap onto their backs that you could push a button and make them flail their arms around.
Going back to us sneaking the pencils and pens out onto the playground to do lightsaber battles, I remember I got these figures, and as soon as I did, I brought the lightsabers to school, and that's what we would then sneak out to the playground to play with, even though they're like only like 8 inches long.
Because it would flip out too. So it was like a 2-for-1. You could use it with the figure or without.
Yep.
We also had light up figures. So 24, 25 years before the Black Series did it with Holocom Collection. Been there, done that. We had light up Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. You could use it for a spirit Qui-Gon, but it was a great holographic Darth Maul with his arms crossed. According to Rebel Scum, where they updated back then and it's still live, so go check it out. There were apparently plans for Obi-Wan, Queen Amidala, and Newt Gunray in this line, who was also planned as a single carded figure, which I have been aware of for a very long time. Never made it out. I still need that. I still want that. A holographic Newt Gunray has about a negative 0% chance of ever happening these days, but I know some customizers have done great ones, so I got to search that out.
You mentioned Rebel Scum and the Force.net and the Force.net forums those were the places that I went to every day, or at least every day I was allowed to use the computer.
Yes.
Yeah. So good.
My 1 hour of computer time, which I probably should stick to today as well. But
I remember doing the Force.net countdowns before leaving the house to go see Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
Nice when they would have updates almost daily of fun facts and behind the scenes information and stuff. So in addition to these figures, there were a few multi-packs. I think my favorite of which was the cinema scene called Watto's Box at the pod race, which featured another version of Watto plus Shaka, a Twilight girl, and the absolutely ginormous, awesome Graxol Kelvin covered in soft goods. Just an amazing figure. Some of the multi-pack figures were just like slightly different pre-posed versions of characters, but I love the Qui-Gon with the poncho too, screaming at Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Whose own...
was it Tatooine Showdown? That was with like the running Anakin and yeah.
The other one
loved
had
that set.
Jar Jar being accosted by Sebulba and then Anakin saying, Chesko, Sebulba. But we even had accessory sets back then, some of which were literally just a bunch of small accessories or cloaks and capes and stuff. Yeah. And some of which were a little bit like larger, like the Gungan catapult and stuff like that.
Was it the Naboo one that had that grappling hook that you could strap on them like a backpack? Yep. That was probably the most used accessory for me. That and the lightsabers, because they put black hilt painted versions of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's lightsabers in a couple of them.
Goth sabers.
Yeah, those got a lot of playtime because rule of cool, man.
Hell yeah. And the cloaks are great. And I've seen people lately using them for retro collection, if I'm allowed to even say retro collection on this podcast.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to, because we're going to have to talk about it later for a sec.
I also had a lot of creatures and creature sets with figures, but all the creatures from the Naboo, Battle of the Grassy Plains, the Kadu, Falumpa set, Famba. Yes, I'm still speaking English. They had the OPC creature, but not the Sando, Aqua Monster, or Kolo Clawfish. So actually, no Qui-Gon. There's not always a bigger fish. But also the Eope, which was kind of hard to find. I think it was only overseas for a long time. Like I said, some of this stuff I had to get years later over the course of celebrations and things like that, which was also a part of the fun of collecting for a very long time.
I never owned an Eope until 2022 when the Obi-Wan Kenobi series was coming out, and I snagged one off of eBay for like not too bad. I think I only got it for like $25. So
was it the original one or the reissued one with Qui-Gon mail away?
It was the one in the white box, so reissued probably.
Slightly better, same sculpt and everything, but
yeah, love it, and it's still relevant today.
Yes. Because they certainly did not do a new one for the Obi-Wan show, other than Mission Fleet, of course. Anyway, there's your Tyler side of the episode.
Yeah, I know. We're all just sighing. Got it.
Yeah. Couple of play sets. There was the Feed Generator Complex with launching platforms, so your Duel of the Fates figures could jump like they do in the movie, or they could just fly a few inches in the air and then fall flat on their faces.
I was always too scared to use that because even as a kid, I didn't want to break my lightsaber toys. Like I heard the accessories, I didn't want to break them.
Yeah,
because I knew it was going to be a little tough to convince my parents to buy me a new one just because I needed the lightsaber. I do have a couple lightsabers glued back together from the Power of the Jedi run, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, because this was before they started doing like the flared blades with the removable blades and hilts, but so they were a little more sturdy than some of the upcoming ones. But the other play set was the Feed Hanger play set. They could kind of connect to each other, but it had a motorized spinning Qui-Gon, which was awesome, or a little motorized spinning thing on the play set that you put Qui-Gon on. But he would spin, he would kick, he would smack into a battle droid and cut it in half. It was just awesome.
Action figures. Yes. Action figures.
And vehicles, of course, of every possible size and description, from little mini rigs in the Invasion Force line, the only representation of the bongo we have. You'll be hearing about the bongo later. Oh, I will be going full Karen about the bongo. But things like the Naboo Starfighter, the droid Starfighters before they were called Vulture droids, Anakin and Sebulba's pod racers. Sadly, I wish we had got some other pod racers as well, but I'll take Anakin and Sebulba's, of course. And the big one, the Naboo Royal Starship.
Yep. I think, I got this for Christmas in 1999. That was the big gift that year. It was the home base for all of my action figure play for years, man. So good. Loved it. I remember my dad and mom were so stoked to give it to me, and I think I ripped it out of the box like instantly. I don't even think I opened other gifts. I was so enthralled with this thing.
Yeah, it was amazing. I got it for Christmas as well. I remember my mind being blown by the laser tag technology that would the droid starfighter. You'd point it at the thing, you'd shoot it a couple times, and the panels would blow off, so that the droids would have to come fix them.
That's so much cooler than Nerf.
Yeah. Why don't we have laser tag technology anymore? What happened to our laser tag? It's probably messing with people's cell phones or something. But
I was going to say it would probably cost, like, that ship would probably cost, I don't know, $900 now. Like, good God.
Such a great ship. It has a throne for Queen Amidala, even though none of the Queen Amidalas can sit, but that's okay. And I guess the retro one can sit in there. But yeah, just an amazing toy. Like I said, some of the items near the end were very difficult to find. And some of those figures were actually planned for a relaunch of the Comtech chip, which would have had a new oval shape and twice as much dialogue. But the world wasn't ready for that technology. So instead of continuing the episode 1 line, we got Power of the Jedi starting in 2000 with some Force files, little brochures with factoids about the characters.
Can I just say that this is, I mean, TVC aside, obviously, and like modern definitive stuff, Power of the Jedi is my favorite figure line of all time. I think that was the most fun I ever had as a kid collecting those.
It was so fun. It was really getting deeper into the collector type figures. Like, I'm looking at it now, even from the original trilogy, you got Boshek for the first time. You got General Leia for the first time. You got the first Porkins, Elor's Medak.
That's
FX7.
How I learned about a lot of these characters.
Yep. And you could learn even more. You can learn about their friends and enemies on the Jedi Force file. We got Shmi Skywalker. We got Sabe. We got, Zutton, or no, Zutmore is the name now, but
Plo Koon, Sacy-Teen, Ethkoth.
Yep. There was a lot of, I know there was an initiative to get more original trilogy figures in the line. So some of them were like K3PO and R2Q5 were repaints of TC-14 and R2B1.
And the Bespin security guard.
Yep.
Which one?
This, I don't know if it was a specific guy at the time.
Okay.
But I'll call him Joey. But the Darth Maul that got split in half with a magnet, that was awesome. Some of the best figures in Power of the Jedi that I loved were the concept episode 1 figures, which they kind of, he's holding up a Darth Maul right now, folks, which were, they changed them into being cold weather and Jedi training and Sith training and whatnot to kind of keep them in the story. They were awesome. Those got a lot of play as well, because it was like, I love the, Jedi Apprentice series with young Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
Shout out to a person I follow on Instagram called Journal of the Wills. They are doing a read through of that series, and it is wonderful getting this 25 years later, an adult going back and revisiting those and, being really impressed overall with them. So it's a blast from the past, fun walk down memory lane, just like we're doing here. But really fun getting, unfiltered adult thoughtful takes on those books.
Nice. We almost had a book podcast a couple of years ago, and then we got
best
we do this
intentions.
one instead.
Yeah.
But I loved alternate versions of some of these characters. A better Boss Nass, a redo of Foden Bede, because the two-headed announcer, unnamed in the Jabba set from the episode 1 line, was based on the on-set version of those characters that were supposed to be the actors' heads with like blue screen turtlenecks. And then they said, yeah, that looks like crap. We're just going to CGI the whole thing. That's absolutely right. And no matter what universe you're from, that's gotta hurt. But so some of these, do-over figures, and then I love the Jar Jar with the tongue out and the folded up pit droid, and just a great line of figures.
That I think the most recent all new Phantom Menace main outfit Anakin that we have dates back to that line. right?
Well, we got him. No, there was one in
Sculpt?
Movie Heroes in
But wasn't-
2012.
Was that based on that sculpt?
There was
Or
a
it
new
was a
one in
different
there.
one?
There was a few that were repacked. Yeah, so that was repacked in Movie Heroes, but there was a new one as well. There was an all new
Okay.
sculpt in 2012.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to
But-
jump too far ahead.
That's all right. I got to correct you when you're wrong.
You're always correcting me, though.
But so there were some episode 1 figures throughout other lines like Saga and quote unquote post original trilogy collection. About a wave each every couple of years, like in Saga collection, Legacy collection, a few scattered throughout in 30th anniversary collection across multi-packs and things like that. But yeah, there was another big hit of episode 1 goodness in a little bit.
Yeah, but we'll be talking about some of those figures later.
That's right. And some of the, let me pull up some of the Saga collection and Legacy collection figures, because some of those were quite good.
Yeah, and Hasbro considers all of them quite good.
But back in the days when we'd get themed waves, in Legacy collection when you got Rum Slag, which is just incredible that they were still doing stuff like that. The Gungan Warrior, I would love a new, another crack at the Gungan Warrior. Still adding pod racers to the line. Saga collection brought us Dudbolt and Mars Guo. Legacy brought us Clegg Holdfast. Give a hearty hello to Clegg Holdfast, of course. Yeah, just awesome updates to the fact that we have Rep Bean and Gragra from Saga collection is something that will never get old. Some of these characters are like, well, other lines are probably not going to get figures like that ever. But one of the advantages of having 40 years of 3.75 inch figures in the Star Wars line.
Now this is world building.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely, yes.
Were there any other figures from those lines, or should we jump on to the next thing?
There were figures. One other thing I want to talk about was the Sith infiltrator ship from the 30th anniversary collection, which was quite undersized, but I was still very happy to get that. It works, Darth Maul's the only person that flies it, so they kind of released it more as a starfighter-sized vehicle in 2007, and I was really glad to see that. But, a little undersized, but still awesome to see that.
Yeah. And then that takes us all the way up to, the 3D re-release and the toy line there. So if you may recall, the Mayans predicted that 2012 was the end of the world. A prophecy misread could have been. The world kept turning. But 3 3/4 inch was dealt a pretty fatal blow at retail that year.
Yes, there was still stuff to go around, but that was the year episode 1 came out in 3D. There was a lot of stuff. I know some people had overproduced episode 1 merchandise in 1999, and no, it was not quite the gold rush all the time that everybody wanted it to be. And then they learned absolutely no lessons from that and did it again in 2012. I think
Hasbro and wrong lessons.
Yeah. Name a more iconic duo. So it wasn't. So in addition to the vintage collection, which of course we will be getting to in a second, there was in 2012 the Movie Heroes line, which was kind of the basic line at retail of 3 3/4 figures, which still was, using figures that had been. There was a lot of repacks from over the years. Some that maybe would be coming to vintage collection again. There was the Discover the Force line at Walmart, which was, again, a lot of the same figures in Movie Heroes, but with 3D glasses on the side. And then there was, of course, a wave of vintage collection figures. But I'll say it was kind of amazing in Discover the Force. There was a lot of smart and maybe not so smart reuse, but it was repacks of things like that Anakin, like you mentioned. It was they repacked the dewback that had been released for episode 4 as an episode 1 dewback. It actually was more accurate to episode 1. They re-released all the pod racers with their flags now, something kind of new. They filled out the rest of the Naboo Royal Starship astromech droids. It was things that, as an episode 1 fan, I had been waiting for that they had not added to the 3 3/4 inch line in the years leading up to that, kind of filling out and fleshing out the line. With repaints of vehicles, like the pod racers and the AAT, repurposing a lot of Clone Wars stuff. And then 2 big vehicles from the Movie Heroes line were the Naboo Starfighter, which was a very nice upgrade to the 99 version. It was an all-new version. Maybe not quite as nice as the Mandalorian version we just got, but it was still awesome. And that was another one that was hard to get. I remember Entertainment Earth had it on back order. I think they canceled orders at one point. But I'm looking at some of this. And then they had some of the Movie Heroes later in the line. They ended up having some light-up lightsabers, which were kind of fun. You weren't really collecting at this point, right?
No, I was out. I was out of the game at this point. It wasn't until 2014 that I started jumping back in. 2015 that I really got back in.
So
I had nothing. I remember seeing all of these things. I saw them all because I was still going to look and see it, but couldn't afford it, and didn't really have the drive for it as that rebellious time. That was also my I don't like the prequels era. Funny enough. So
that was around. We were in college at the time.
Yeah,
and where we met, for those that don't know. But I remember driving forth back between college and my family's house when I'd visit them on weekends or whatever, and stopping at Walmart late at night when they were stocking. And this 2012 was just, for some reason, I was just always hitting Walmart at the right time. But I remember finding a lot of the movie heroes, some of the later ones where they were doing new sculpts into the line, like Jar Jar and that new Anakin and the new Theed Battle Padme, which, not amazing figures, but it was still nice to get updated versions of them in some form or fashion. And Movie Heroes 24 Boba Fett with the zipline jetpack is one of the only figures I do not have. I consider that the only basic figure that I do not have. This was only released overseas, which is just the 2004 figure with a slightly different jetpack. And is that worth $300? I don't know. To some people, yes. To me, also, yes. So
not buy any of this one, John.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. But so yeah, in addition to Movie Heroes, well, I'll just say real quick, actually, before I completely blow up the segue, in Discover the Force, there were a few figures as well, which were new, which were Aura Singh, the Gungan Warrior, Mahonic, and the Naboo Pilot, all of which were repacked immediately in the Vintage Collection. There were a couple others, Rick Ollier and G8R3, who were exclusive to that line, as well as repacks again of Legacy Collection Obi-Wan and 30th Anniversary Collection Qui-Gon from an Evolutions set. Those figures were available in 3 different lines at the same time, and we'll be getting to that in a second. But
yeah, so just quick, am I correct here? 19 figures.
I didn't count, but I'll go with that. So we'll go through them all one by one. But
not a one is newer than 2012.
Yes.
So. Yes. So you mentioned Mahonic. He was repacked as VC71.
And the repacks were the 4 repacks I mentioned. Those were part of the online exclusive final wave of TVC 1.0. I remember getting those, and I didn't need openers, so I think I sold a couple to you.
Yeah, you did. You fool.
I'm a fool. But also, Mahonic is in the 9 Nun category because they made the figure really short, and I don't think he's supposed to be that short. I was very confused about that because in the movie, you see Gran walking around in the pod race hangar where Qui-Gon is doing his force power on the Chance Cube and whatnot. And they're regular height. They're just regular height actors in regular Gran suits. But I think someone along the way said, all pod racers are short. So Mahonic is actually really short. So the figure is tiny. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't think that's accurate, but I don't actually know. I don't know enough to dispute it. That's my Mahonic spiel.
Did he have no, he didn't have a character debut sticker on him because he was Discover the Force first, right?
Yes. I don't remember which characters have stickers on them.
Okay,
One of the episode
I wrote
figures
them down.
did, but okay.
Yeah. So VC72 was the Naboo Pilot. VC73 was the Aura Singh, which you just mentioned was which was a Discover the Force figure.
Yes.
VC74 Gungan Warrior. And then VC75 Qui-Gon Jinn, which was a repack of that 2008 Anniversary Collection Jedi Legacy Evolutions figure. That's our Qui-Gon.
That's all we get.
That 2008 Qui-Gon is the one that they think, yeah, you guys already have him in the line. Don't sweat it. You're fine.
They did I think it was for the Last Jedi line. They did a 2-pack of Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. Yeah, 5 POA. But the head sculpt is it's better.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks like a dog with like wet ears, this Qui-Gon, because of the way the hair is sculpted. It's just not stunning.
It's the I think you should leave sketch where he's got the hair cut like a dog.
Yeah.
It looks like dog ears.
That's our Qui-Gon.
Oh, man. And then following that up, VC76 is Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a repack of the 2009 Legacy Collection figure. Again, that's it, man. That's horrible. Not a good figure. That cannot possibly be the last one that we get.
Yes,
we need a new one. So then VC77 Rats Tyrell and Pit Droid, and this one had a character debut sticker.
Okay.
Pit Droid is a repaint of the figure from 2000. So there's a figure from 2000 in the Vintage Collection. VC-78 Battle Droid, which was later, of course, reissued as the Gummy Bear Battle Droid in 2021. No wrists, can't hold its blaster properly, but that's the one in the vintage collection. Cool.
And there have been, I think, better battle droids that were taller, and I do like the articulation, and I appreciate that they tried to do it so that he can like collapse into the unfolding scene from the end of episode 1, the Battle of Naboo. But yeah, he needs to be able to hold his blaster properly. I would love a new battle droid.
Since we have the definitive clone, why don't we have the definitive battle droid that we can build armies with? I mean, they have to be seeing decent sales on these clones, man. Even my stupid self bought several of that phase 2 set. But anyway, back to this VC-79 Darth Sidious, which is really cool. VC-80 Anakin Skywalker, which is from his final scene in the movie, just that one shot essentially. That was of course reissued with photoreal in 2022.
Available at a Ross near you.
Yes. Now. Yeah. And then VC-81, Ben Quadraneros with Otoga 222. Bring me Ben Quadraneros, not Solo. This was another one with a character debut sticker. So
yes. If I can talk about the pod racers real quick in general, him and Rats Tyrell.
Please do.
It obviously has some heavy hitters, but this wave, but it was also bringing new characters into the line. It was, so, I always think of, some people think the vintage collection kind of like started the 3.75 inch line, that it began with vintage. Nobody thinks that, but you know what I'm saying? Like people think that this is the alpha and omega of figures. But at the time it was sort of like, okay, we've done Sebulba, we've done, Mars Guo, we've done all these other characters. So there's no need to repack them other than like Mahonic, who was just released the exact same year. But they did actually repack all the pod racers, but in the Discover the Force or Movie Heroes line with their flags, which, like I said, I appreciate, but which is an incredibly small thing, but I appreciate it. All right. But so it wasn't like, I think, especially at the time, Hasbro considered it just the evolution of the line of the 3.7 inch line in general. That's how I've always kind of looked at it. So that's why I'm like, if a figure already exists, I don't always need it to be updated, but Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul are 3 figures that absolutely need to be updated. 100%. I don't know if that made any sense, but hopefully you take my meaning.
I get you. Just because I understand you though, John, does not mean that anyone else might. So don't get too cozy.
Well, in the next character, I'll get ahead of you and say it's VC-82 Dalte Dauphine. And people are like, okay, why is Newt Gunray and Rune Hacko not in the line, but Dalte Dauphine is? It's like, because they already existed in a line. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do get it. It's harder, of course, to really suss that out in the 2024 lens and the TVC 2.0 lens, where this is our line. This is the be all end all catch all line. So
I just thinking of how Hasbro was thinking of it at the time, especially, it kind of helps make sense of their decisions, I think. But yeah.
The next one would be VC-83 Naboo Royal Guard, and then VC-84 Queen Amidala. That's her Coruscant look, correct, from one scene in the movie?
Yes. It's actually, she wears this one twice. She wears it on Coruscant, and then in the reshoot scene at the end, we shall watch Yolkri with great interest when everyone's haircut is suddenly different, and Mace is played by a different actor.
Fake Windu,
yeah.
I pointed that out to Quinn after we saw it. I was like, oh, did you notice Fake Windu? She was like, I was not even looking. It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we got,
it's pretty obvious too. It's hilarious how it's very much not Samuel L. Jackson.
Ben Burton, Rick McCollum front and center. And Jake, I was going to say Hayden. Jake Lloyd is visibly older. Ewan McGregor is visibly heavier. And Padme's handmaidens are completely different as well. So yeah. They're like, oh yeah, we forgot to have Palpatine and Anakin talk to each other. We should probably do that real quick. So work with what we got. But yeah, so that was another new figure, a new version of Queen Amidala, whereas her red version might be a more iconic look for vintage collection, but the black one had never been done at the time. The photoreal was an amazing update to that.
It was.
Maybe not the most needed figure of a repack, but the photoreal really showed how great the sculpt is. But what were you going to say?
The iconic one, the red Theed costume that I think you were referencing, that was a Power of the Jedi figure, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's interesting that one didn't make the cut for the episode 1 line, since it was so much part of the iconography of that movie was that outfit.
they did the Senate one in the episode 1 line.
Yeah.
And some of her handmaiden disguises and battle gear and stuff, but that was the only
The Tatooine handmaiden is the one that I think was my favorite of those, and that was the one that my cousin that was her main character figure growing up.
That was another thing in the store, is seeing like Padme Naberrie and Queen Amidala. They're both clearly Natalie Portman on the card. Like, huh?
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I remember asking my dad. I was like, Senator Palpatine, but there's an Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah. What?
Make it make sense. Like, well, who's Darth Sidious? He looks a lot like the Emperor.
I remember the theories on theforce.net where there were clones of each other or something. Even up to episode 3, people were still not thinking that they were the same person. Anyway, man. What a fandom we have, folks.
So good. Not reactionary at all. VC85 was Quinlan Voss. Blink and you miss him, but a character that was super fleshed out in the Dark Horse era of comic books. One of my favorites of the old canon. And I really hope we get to see him again in the new canon. I know they referenced him.
Been mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, they referenced him in Kenobi. He was a main character in the Dark Disciple book, which was scrapped Clone Wars episodes, but which was maybe thrown away based on Ventress showing up in Bad Batch, but they're saying it wasn't. So
I think there's time. He'll show up. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, and then VC86 was Darth Maul, reissued with photoreal in 2020. We talked about this figure last week on the previous episode. Not great, but it
wasn't that much of an upgrade over the Evolutions figure from 2005, which I thought was pretty good, and had been, and that Evolutions figure had been repacked a few times and stuff, even in, I think, the Walmart line. But it's okay, but an all new one would be a whole lot better.
Yeah. So it was 2012, and then we asked for a new one, and we're met with, "What's wrong with you people?" Whereas Black Series got one in 2013, and now they're getting a new one this year, and they're like, "You're gonna love it," and everybody's like, "Why do we need it?" I hate it. Yeah. So speaking of hate, VC108, Jar Jar Binks. He was released in the Lost Line wave and in that carbon freezing chamber con exclusive.
Yeah, he was in the Lost Line look and on a regular vintage card.
I remember very much finding that Lost Line one in a store and sending you a photo of it, asking what this is. Explain this, John?
Yeah, it was very strange.
Speaking of strange, in that carbon freezing chamber exclusive, in the middle there was a secret bonus figure, and it was Jar Jar in carbonite. Prequel hate was so popular that it manifested as a piece of licensed merch.
Yeah, there was a life-size one at Celebration and stuff, and I think George actually saw it and thought it was funny. Or maybe there was one of him in carbonite as well. I can't remember which one he saw, but somehow he signed off on it at some point. But
I think George had a sense of humor about this stuff.
Yeah,
it seemed so.
Until he cited it as literally the reason why he's retiring.
So vehicles for the Phantom Menace in the vintage collection. Drum roll, please.
None, absolutely none. But there were, like I said, there were a lot of repacks in the other lines at the time, and it wasn't like it wasn't that the other line figures were so much of a different quality that you couldn't buy them, and they were meant to be bought and displayed together. In my opinion, for the most part, your mileage may vary on some of them, but yeah. So not a lot of TPM and TVC.
I was going to say, notice a theme here that literally all of these are VC 1.0. Ending in 2012. Not a one is new to the line in the 2.0 format. Were there any in the Black Series 3 3/4 inch line?
I don't think so. They were moving on to the episode 2 and 3 3D releases for that line.
And I know we got some 5POA ones, like you mentioned, the Qui-Gon from The Last Jedi line.
Yeah. Darth Maul tends to make an appearance every few years, in the 5POA lines and things like that. But it's been slim pickings for episode 1 for a while.
Yep. So 19 figures, none new since 2012, the oldest in the line dating back to 2000. Black Series this year for the 25th anniversary just got Anakin in his main look. Our definitive version is the one that you brought up from the movie here. Was it Movie Heroes?
Yeah, which has less articulation than some of the Power of the Jedi one with the knees.
Okay.
But
then They also got Feed Battle Padme, and our definitive version is that one with 8 POA from 2012. And then they are getting a brand new Droideka. Our definitive version is the one from the 2007 30th anniversary collection.
Yes, as well as Ki-Adi-Mundi and some of the things that are like Phantom Menace adjacent, even if it's on an Attack of the Clones box or whatever. But
yeah, and their Darth Maul, of course. So
yes,
nothing. Big old goose egg here. Nothing for the Phantom Menace 25th anniversary for TVC whatsoever. Hasbro seems to have market research that tells them that this isn't the right quote unquote when to do them for us. And as we covered last week, they seem genuinely surprised that we'd want new definitive versions of some of these characters. But hey, Retro 5 POA is just as good, right?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Misa don't think so. There you go.
I mean, whatever.
Jar Jar.
Both of us here do collect retro. Boo hiss,
yes.
I know. But so I do enjoy those retro figures, but
it was kind of amazing to go into Target and get 6 newly sculpted Episode 1 figures for the first time in a very long time. Albeit, yes, I would have preferred them in vintage collection.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And
yes.
as I said in the today, as we record this, I did a post about the top 25 most wanted figures, which we will get. I'll rattle them off here in a minute, but talking about how Lego has pod racers and droidekas and stuff this year. Hasbro has it in their other scales. Micro Galaxy Squadron, I was able to finally get a Bongo, and they did a Naboo Starfighter as well. All these other companies, there's apparel, there's stuff in the Disney parks. Plenty of Episode 1 love throughout all the licensors, except Vintage Collection. Hasbro got to tell us that there was a prequel celebration because Black Series and Retro get figures for Episode 1, 2, and 3, whereas Vintage Collection gets figures that we were asking for on Attack of the Clones' 20th anniversary 2 years ago, because we have to get ahead of everything and tell them what we want at all times and then hope that they actually pay attention to it. Dooku is an amazing figure. It's an all-timer.
Yeah.
The Jango is an all-timer. The Clone Trooper is fantastic. I'd prefer one more crack at it without a removable helmet, because the Phase 2, Episode 3 Clone Wars Ahsoka version is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a little bit of, some prequel love in general in TVC, but just not in the actual Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And like we said, it was, so
people
I'll just say people point to the Episode 1 line in 2012, the Episode 1 wave for killing Vintage Collection, which it certainly did not help.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just that. Like if you look at the Blue Milk book, they were talking, it was massively, it was overproduced. They thought the 3D release would bring more fans into the line. I think by that point, people were tired of 3D. Maybe the prequel love and nostalgia wasn't in full swing yet, the way it is now, I would say.
Yeah.
Again, going from seeing it with literally 3 other people in the theater
to now a full theater.
It's now a full theater. Yeah. People enjoying it for what it is and having fun with it and laughing alongside it, Interesting experience. But, so I wouldn't blame, and they have repacked. So if those Episode 1 figures killed the line, they have repacked 4 or 5 of them from that same wave in TVC 2.0 with, and they seem to be fine doing that. So I think if they wanted to continue to make more Episode 1 and prequel in general figures in the line, they should feel good about doing so.
Methinks their market research methodology on this is a little flawed, or the archives are incomplete for them. Yeah. So, wow. Yeah, that was actually 2 years ago to the day that we were talking about the Attack of the Clones one, because the day we're recording this is the 22nd anniversary of Attack of the Clones.
We were begging for a new Dooku and Jango and Clone Trooper, and now we got them. Still no Klieg. But,
Klieg, sorry.
Klieg, yes.
Let me correct you there. I will.
But what
embarrassing thing.
But what do you want for Episode 1?
Thanks for asking. There's a lot that I want. It was hard to narrow it down. I just narrowed it down to 10 things. I didn't particularly rank them, but there's 10 things I very much want, all new in the Vintage Collection. And that would be Anakin Skywalker, Tatooine, his main outfit, the one that Black Series just got, because, again, the main character in his main look for the whole movie. Then Obi-Wan Kenobi, obviously, all new. Qui-Gon Jinn, obviously. Darth Maul, obviously. Padme Nabry, the Tatooine handmaiden version that I mentioned enjoying. I think that's the one that I have the most nostalgia for, and especially since she did wear that outfit for a very substantial chunk of the film. And, I love the whole middle of the movie Tatooine sequence. There's a lightsaber fight. There's a NASCAR race. There's a poop joke. It's all cool. Yep. Like, love that. So I want to be able to recreate that.
And the Padme figure we have from the episode 1 line, that is, in particular, a lot of the episode 1 figures are great for what they are, but some of them, like their eyes, look a little doll-like. The whites are very big. The sculpting is getting better, not quite hitting its stride yet, but yeah. And
then, as we mentioned, the battle droid is also on my list. Droidica, which Black Series is getting. Sebulba is one. That's one of those slightly more minor characters, but I really love Sebulba. I think an articulated Doug would be so cool in a modern standard figure. I would love that. He would look great on a vintage collection card. His pod racer would also be a great addition, but I didn't put that on the list.
I would dig that, Doug.
And then, of course, an all new Jar Jar Binks, I think would be great. I don't know how much we need one, because this is a confession, I don't have the vintage collection one loose, so I don't have that. I should probably get that at some point. And then lastly, Watto. I would really love a new Watto.
I would love a Watto as well. I think the Jar Jar is good. It's not, he would be even better with, ball joint hips and stuff because he is such an expressive, character. And he always has the stoic facial expression. So I would prefer something a little wackier if they ever do
a smiling Jar Jar.
Yes, or a version with the tongue out, even though he only does that for a little bit. But a
deluxe one with swappable heads with different expressions would be great. Of course, that would probably be $47.99.
Yeah. But Figure Arts is doing a new Jar Jar this year, right? Was that
they are? Yeah, they are.
But they solicited it. I don't know if they.
That's been shown. Like they've got a bunch of figures in their parking lot that they've shown, photos or like mock-ups or prototypes of. That Jar Jar, I think, has existed for several years now. I remember seeing a photo of it back when I was collecting Figure Arts in like 2017. So that they're finally releasing it now. That's fun. I think that's cool. And Black Series, of course, famously got theirs in 2021, somewhere in there, and it landed like poodoo and went straight to clearance. So
yeah, and they repacked it again anyway.
But yeah, how about you, John? What's on your short list?
Those are great choices. Well, it's a long list, but
okay,
probably a bongo. I need a bongo.
I didn't even need to wait for your answer to type that in the outline. By the way, I knew it was going to be a bongo.
Thank you. Mustard. What's a bongo? A transport, I hope. But I love the design. It's so crazy. It's so wacky. The fact that there's a species of 7-foot tall orange frogmen that live in underwater Art Nouveau bubbles. It's wild. It's wild that this stuff exists in our world, and I love it. And I would love to celebrate it in the 3 3/4 line because, again, the episode 1 line and the episode 1, how they followed it up over the years, it was just so expansive. They did almost everything. So that's why I ask for things that they didn't do. Like, going to say it again, if you've listened to any March Madness related stuff, I'm going to ask for Kitster and Wald, which if they did a new Anakin, they could reuse parts for those guys, especially Kitster, because they're a similar size. But those were things that Hasbro did say, they were always kind of in the parking lot on the bubble of being made. Didn't quite make it out in 2012. I know Daryl DePriest had said that they wanted to do a 2-pack, could never quite cost it out. I think the pod racer has probably sailed, but it would be so wizard if they could finally get Kitzer and Wald in the line. New versions of Padme in her Theed battle gear and Captain Panaka could lead to the other characters that wear those outfits. Rabe and Ierte, her other handmaidens that wear those outfits, and then Panaka can lead to the other Naboo security forces. I would love a Gungan Warrior 4-pack. Either they could even do the vintage collection one is like an officer, like Tarpulse, and I would love a new Tarpulse, just a new head on that same body, and then the other ones from Legacy Collection or whatever. I'd love the band member, Augie's Great Municipal Band, which they have a little drum set up on their torso, which you could reuse from one of the figures that have the horn that he plays from Legacy Collection. Some other ones, I'm going to shout out some random. I'm getting real deep here. Tay Hao, one of the only Neimoidians they never made. The PK Worker Droid, a new battle droid. I need a good pilot battle droid. Watto and Sebulba would be great. I need a Twi'lek masseuse and Tangela. That's one figure, 2 sales right there. plus a carded one. And then they did such a great job with the episode 1 versions of Padme. They've made every single outfit that she wears in the movie, except for the cloak that she wears over her Senate gown in the Senate. They made the pre-Senate one without that cloak. And her ombre orange and yellow look when she's in Handmaiden disguise, they did that as Rabe, but they did not do that as Padme. But so we're basically there with a few caveats. I would also love one more vehicle and one more group of figures, and then that's it for now. I swear to God. But the other vehicle I want is the Trade Federation Droid Transport. Lego, I think, is doing it again this year. But it's in the background. It's kind of halfway in size between the AAT and the MTT, which I forgot to bring up for the 2012 line, but that is absolutely amazing.
I should get one of those.
The motorized one that shows up, I love, I've shown that to my nephew a few times. I don't really let him buy the Star Wars stuff a whole lot, but he does like to pretend to be Darth Maul and wave his lightsaber around, which is usually just a stick of some kind. But when he sees the battle droids come out of that thing, it's always fun seeing people's reactions to that. But and then another group of figures that needs to be updated is some of the Jedi Council members, especially Depa Billaba is at the top of my list because, like the aforementioned Queen Amidala figures, she cannot sit, and all she does in the movie is sit. She stands at the end at Qui-Gon's funeral in the Naboo celebration, but I need a new version, and she put her on a Bad Batch card, whatever. Put her out exactly with Caleb Doom. Thinking. Yeah. Put her out with I know they love redoing all the figures from the Amazon Bad Batch 4-pack, so put her out with Captain Gray again. But yeah.
That would be hilarious if they tooled up a new Depa Billaba, put her on a Bad Batch card, but we still can't get the rest of the Bad Batch.
Yeah. Small victories, but
You're mentioning Augie's great municipal band. I honestly didn't even think about that, and now I'm just picturing like a 7-pack, like the modal nodes of just a bunch of Gungans and all the different instruments. Like,
yes, please,
dude. You just put 7 of the same figure in the darn thing, and just the different accessories. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay, so that's what we want, and we love to talk about what we want, but it's also good to look at what the community in general is kind of trying to prioritize when given the opportunity to do so via fan polls or whatever. Maybe like things like, I don't know, March Madness and Last Figure Standing, stuff like that. So, John, where have Phantom Menace characters placed in March Madness?
Well, so this year there was more prequel characters on the bracket than ever. There were 8 total, including 3 from Phantom Menace. Again, some of the Jedi Council members, they made repeat appearances through the trilogy. Plo Koon has been on twice. Ki-Adi-Mundi has been on twice. And Qui-Gon Jinn made his debut this year onto the bracket. I did a list today. You can check it out on Instagram of the top 25 prequel characters in general. Anakin and Obi-Wan from episode 3 were the highest ranked ones on that list. If I can go through some of the other episode 1 figures, we don't need to hear all top 25, do we?
No,
do you want to hear it?
Just do the Phantom Menace ones.
Okay. Plo Koon was at number 34. Then Qui-Gon Jinn, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Queen Amidala in her red theed gown, the droidica, Yaddle, who of course got a big bump from Tales of the Jedi a few years ago.
Became one of my most wanted instantly.
Yep. Those are all in the top 100. Down a little bit, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padawan, Padme Naberi or Amidala in her theed battle gown, a new episode 1 Darth Maul, Watto, Captain Panaka, Anakin Skywalker Tatooine, Sebulba. A lot of these guys we've mentioned as well. Sassy Teen, Padme Naberi in her Tatooine handmaiden outfit, Senator Palpatine, Tay-How, Kitster, Wald, my boys, Newt Gunray in his episode 1 appearance, Newt Gunray in his episode 3 appearance made the bracket this year, Captain Tarpals, because who else is going to tell us that we're in big doo-doo this time? Adigalia, Boss Nass, Sabe in her theed battle gown, Ethkoth, and Jar Jar Binks, who is way down at 386. So that's quite the range of episode 1 characters throughout the line. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff they could get to. Will they? No, but they should.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up, shall we?
Yes, I think I'm done listing episode 1 figures for right now.
All right, well, let's throw it to this clip from Toys Are the Way.
Hello, boyos! Toys of the Way here. One of my earliest and favorite memories regarding the Phantom Menace goes back to being a young collector and getting the sneak preview Battle Droid and Stap from Toys R Us. Commercials were brilliant back then, and I was easily energized by new marketing, especially when it came to Star Wars. As soon as the Battle Droid and Stap commercial hit my living room TV set, I embarked on a mission to convince my parents that I needed to have this in my life, and luckily I won that battle with ease. I guess you could say my focus determined my reality. The Phantom Menace had so many advertisements, and it was quite a blast to be a young fan experiencing a new Star Wars chapter that was accompanied by some phenomenal merchandise. Each commercial added to my wish list and desire to collect an abundance of Star Wars everything, while Hasbro's commercials had me ready to world build my Episode 1 collection with Jedi, pod racers, battle droids, and Naboo starfighters. Some of my personal favorites were actually the Taco Bell commercials, which added some nice humor to this pop culture event. Sadly, there was a Federation blockade set up by my parents when it came to eating Taco Bell, and maybe that was for the best. The Phantom Menace certainly meant a lot to me, as it sparked the prequel trilogy and put both Jedi and Sith front and center. I am still amazed by the lightsaber battle during Duel of Fates, and it never gets old. I remember one of my older brothers who grew up during the time of the original trilogy was not feeling the saber choreography, and like a number of fans thought it was overdone. But not this Star Wars fan. Darth Maul was cooler than a Wampa cave on Hoth, and as soon as I got his deluxe action figure with the battle swing, I was recreating that scene time and time again. Duel of Fates is one of my all-time favorite scores, and I simply cannot get enough of Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul facing off during the Battle of Naboo.
All right. Hey, thanks, Toys Are the Way. We appreciate you. Again, everybody, follow him. His figure reviews, his videos, incredible stuff. Follow him on Instagram, YouTube. Great dude. So we've also put out a prompt on our Instagram at SWTVC. I feel obliged. I feel obligated to say that every time I bring it up, like, yes, it's the handle is at SWTVC, just in case you don't know somehow. But we do find folks every once in a while. It's like, I only see you on YouTube. Okay, cool. But I do encourage you to find us on Instagram because that's where all of our stuff is. I apologize that it's social media, but it's social and it's media.
That's what we're doing here. Yeah.
So yeah, we put out the call, much like we did last year for Return of the Jedi, where we just kind of asked, you've heard our stories, you've heard us talking for 2 hours or so, but send us, your stories, your memories via the comments on that post. I will go ahead and share it again in the stories on Instagram when this drops. But also, if you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube, please drop your episode 1 story in the comments there as well for a chance for it to be featured on one of the podcasts or live streams that we'll do throughout the year. So first up, we're just going to share a couple this time because, it's already been a long episode. First one comes from our friend John Miko. You may recognize him as the guy who runs the Star Wars The Vintage Collection Facebook group. So John, you want to go ahead and read other John's thing?
Yes, from one John to another. John Miko said, I was a senior in high school. Me, my girlfriend, now wife, and 3 friends skipped school with my little brother who's 8 years old. We were also joined by a retired high school teacher who loves Star Wars. 3 different generations. We had so much fun, and it's hard to fathom that was 25 years ago. If I can tack onto that, this is John. This is SWTVC. This is Instagram John, not Facebook John. Yeah, it a big thing, sharing it with everybody. We talked about sharing it with our parents, and now passing it and seeing my nephew getting into it now and pretending to be doing his Darth Maul impression or sharing it with our girlfriends. It's just amazing. That's what it's all about. Sharing it with the people that we love in our life. It's great to see. It's something that we can all bond over and celebrate together, and that's such a great thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I'll follow that up with one more story. It's from my buddy TJ, and he writes, I was 14 years old, I believe, and I remember the hype around the movie just being crazy. My brother and I were so excited to finally be getting a Star Wars film in our lifetime. We read all the magazines about the upcoming film that we could get our hands on, and I remember thinking how amazingly cool Darth Maul looked. We went and saw it in the theaters as a family. The pod race sequence was so fast and so cool, and when Maul fought Qui-Gon on Tatooine, I was excited for more. The final lightsaber battle was just so good. It was the best part of the whole movie for me. Afterwards, we got a bunch of Phantom Menace figures and loved them all. So much so that we made a whole movie one summer with all our Star Wars figures using my parents' camcorder. It even has a stop motion scene of Obi-Wan fighting Maul. Back to Evan talking here. Hey, TJ, find that video. We want to see it.
I need to see that. Yeah.
But yeah, John, you're no stranger to Star Wars figure videos. So
Absolutely. Yes. I have a few. Haven't been brave enough to reshare them yet, but one day.
someday we'll talk you into it.
Also,
So-
when you said the pod race was so fast and so cool, I'll just say one thing. Before all the memes, before everybody was quoting episode 1, my family, we would say things. I remember my dad, he'll break out the very fast, very dangerous every now and then. And then I remember back when episode 1 was new, we would, with the hand washers, if you had the version that they could like turn around and blow in your face, we would do the "It's working, it's working," and that was always a lot of fun.
Oh man, I thought
the way it works into your life, huh? Say what?
I thought you were gonna quote the George Lucas quote, "Faster and more intense."
Yeah, faster, more intense. Yes, that's all Star Wars. Yes, but
yes, if you didn't hear your story today, obviously, again, keep sharing. We'll be sharing these throughout the year. We love it. We love being able to engage with all of you and being able to share your stories with the world. Speaking of anniversaries, man, I hope you're not burned out on them, because next year we will see, John, what are they?
a lot. So, as we look ahead, because we got to ask Hasbro apparently 2 years in advance. Now we're only doing it 1 year in advance, so we're a little late, but next year there's some anniversaries of movies and of the lines. So next year will be 40 years of the original Power of the Force line and the death of the Kinner line. It'll be 30 years of Power of the Force 2 and the birth of the Hasbro line. It'll be 20 years of Revenge of the Sith. And Tyler and I were on Victoria's The Vintage Collection podcast a few months ago talking about that. I had some ideas for very low-hanging fruit they can get into the line. They had actual high hopes for things that could be awesome to see, but I was trying to be a little more realistic because lowered expectations is the name of the game sometimes. But all great ideas, in my opinion, that would be great to see next year.
I just want an Anakin and an Obi-Wan that aren't from
Yes.
2005. I just want all new modern ones of them.
Is that legal?
Apparently not.
Speaking of something that's probably also not legal to reference, it's 10 years of The Force Awakens. So if we're brave enough then to do an episode about that movie, we'll see what we have to say about it then. But
yeah,
if
I
the
might
blowback
turn
from
comments off on that one.
If the blowback, we're only now able to talk about episode 1 in a positive way without totally being trampled on the internet. So
15
maybe
more
one day-
years. 15 more years for Force Awakens. But
So, will we see Vintage Collection Celebration for any of these things?
not a chance.
No.
Depends, John. Do we have desire or is there actual demand? Sorry to put that in there. It's a little salty. Anyway, I can't wait to pony up for that HasLab.
Yeah.
So any closing thoughts? It's been a long one. Thanks for sticking with it, guys. Thank you, John, for sticking with me on this. But yeah, listeners.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a marathon. But it's a movie worth celebrating. If you
is.
haven't gathered that from the past 2 hours or whatever, however long this ends up being, this is something that we're very passionate about. Like, again, we're both children of the prequels, man. This is a huge thing for us, and it's super fun. I mentioned, the healing moment as a fan with the Hayden Christensen stuff. I know we didn't really have that healing moment with Jake Lloyd, unfortunately. I just really love, though, that the discourse around these things has changed, that we're able to have, more fun with Star Wars. And isn't that really what we're here for? But
It is. And speaking of healing moments, Ahmed Best, of course, it's been great hearing him being able to tell his story, how difficult some of the backlash was for him, how hopeful he is about, the future of filmmaking and everything. And seeing him come back as Keller and Beck last year was amazing. There was a great podcast called The Redemption of Jar Jar Binks within the past year. That was a great listen, kind of talking about how the birth of the internet and some of these negative comments, and how it was easier than ever to hear direct feedback on, for good or for ill, and how that can affect people directly. So be nice on the internet, people.
it's almost like there's real people on the other side.
Yes. Can you believe that? But I always loved Ahmed. I've said before, but I'll say it again. At Celebration, of course, I remember seeing him and how my mom held up a picture. It was a printout of me, on a green screen with Jar Jar Binks in the background. And he said, "Oh, I have to sign for this lady over here." And he was just very clearly a nice, caring guy who's very excited about his role in Star Wars. And I hope that he's able to experience some of that joy now that he gets to play Darth Jar Jar in the Lego special, now that he gets to play Keller and Beck, now that he gets to voice Jar Jar for other things. And I wanted to say, just as final thoughts on episode 1, just seeing how it has, continued to work its way into current Star Wars. Like, the third season of The Bad Batch, which I thought was great. A lot of it is, talking about M count, talking about midichlorian count, which was something 25 years ago. Everybody's like, what are you talking about? And now it's the driving plot for an animated series.
Yeah.
Or seeing, things like the characters that showed up throughout the Clone Wars, or
Mando's N1.
Mando's N1, hearing him say wizard, seeing
Pit droids.
Pit droids in The Mandalorian, seeing Mon Mothma in the Senate in Andor having a serious political drama that has scenes in the Coruscant Senate. It was awesome. And I'm super stoked for the Acolytes and to see kind of what led to the Phantom Menace. Why are the Jedi are in this ivory tower? They're kind of separated from everything. We could go on about this forever.
Yeah.
I will for just a second, but how did they, how does a Sith Lord infiltrate the Senate, the highest, halls of power without the Jedi knowing
Right
how
under
blind
their
can they be about
noses.
this? Yes. How do they get to the point where they'd rather sit in a circle and talk about, political matters than get out and help the galaxy like Qui-Gon's trying to do? As we are both reading The Living Force right now, it's another great illustration of that point.
Yeah.
So just the way that they're continuing to explore these stories and these kind of seeds that George Lucas planted 25 years ago is something that's awesome to see. And I love seeing them grow in all the different directions that they grow.
Yeah, same. I'm not going to add anything to that because that was perfect.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
But yeah, man, I guess that just leads us to the end part here. So the usual, hey, if you like our show, if you can tolerate our show even, please consider rating and reviewing it. There's a link in our Instagram bio that should make it super easy to do so. It does really help us out and it means a lot. So John, thank you. Listeners, thank you. Until next time, as always, keep 375 alive and may the Force be with you.